Right now, at this very second, your brain and your clock are both actively lying to you. And honestly, the most shocking part? The brightest minds in the entire world know exactly what's happening, but they still can't fully explain why. Welcome to our fast-paced explainer of reality's biggest glitches. We are counting down 10 everyday mysteries that completely and utterly defy scientific explanation. Let's just jump right into something you are probably doing right now, just because I'm talking about it.
Kicking things off at number 10, yawning, and a completely unexpected connection to empathy.
Okay, so forget everything you were taught in middle school biology. Yawning absolutely does not pull in extra oxygen when you're tired. Researchers actually tested that theory with pure oxygen, and it made zero difference. That old idea is totally dead. The leading new theory? It's basically a built-in radiator, literally cooling your skull down when your brain overheats. But here is the bizarre twist. Yawns are contagious across entirely different species. Dogs yawn when they see us yawn. Scientists think this points to a deep, primitive neurological empathy. So your dog yawning back at you might literally be their evolutionary way of saying, hey, I feel what you feel.
Moving right along to number 9, familiar physics totally breaking its own rules.
This one brilliantly illustrates just how shockingly little we actually know about everyday stuff, like water. Take the Mpemba effect, for instance. Since the days of Aristotle, we've known that hot water can somehow freeze faster than cold water. 2,000 years later, and scientists are literally still arguing over why. Some blame evaporation, others point to convection currents, and some even argue the whole effect is just an illusion. There is no single accepted explanation. And what about slippery ice? For a century, textbooks confidently claimed the pressure of your body weight melted a thin layer of water to create a liquid glide. Well, the math on that completely collapsed. It turns out ice is slippery because its outermost molecules naturally vibrate loosely, acting like a liquid even while below freezing. So every time you slip on a winter's sidewalk, you're experiencing a phenomenon physicists have only barely figured out.
Coming in at number 8, the mind-bending physical power of belief.
The crucial takeaway here is the massive, crazy gap between what your mind expects and what your body actually physically produces. Now, the placebo effect is famous, right? You take a sugar pill, believe it's real medicine, and your brain releases actual, real endorphins. But it gets so much deeper. In open-label placebos, doctors literally tell their patients, hey, this is a fake pill, and those patients still experience real relief just from the ritual of taking it. On the flip side is the much darker nocebo effect. If you're given a totally inactive pill and simply warned it might cause nausea, your expectation alone can manifest actual physical sickness. Your belief can completely override pharmacology, and science hasn't even fully mapped the mechanics of how that's possible.
Number 7 takes us into the dark, dreams and sleep paralysis. You are going to spend roughly 6 solid years of your life dreaming, and science is split into 3 entirely different camps as to why. Is it just your cortex scrambling to make sense of random neurological noise? Are you running nighttime threat rehearsals to practice surviving danger? Or is your brain just filing away memories? All 3 have pretty solid evidence, but absolutely none of them explain why a person who has been blind since birth still has vivid, sensory-rich dreams. And even more terrifying is when the waking world and the dream world literally collide during sleep paralysis. 1 in 5 people will wake up entirely paralyzed, often hallucinating a dark, shadowy figure. From the old hag in Newfoundland to ghost folklore across Southeast Asia, why on earth does a misfiring threat detection system independently invent the exact same monster for everyone? Down to number 6, ancient entities quietly outlasting us all.
Sometimes time just stands completely still. Back in 1901, divers pulled up a 2,000-year-old lump of bronze that contained over 30 intricate interlocking gears. It was an ancient Greek computer built around 100 BC that flawlessly calculated eclipses and moon phases. Think about that. Somebody built a complex machine to calculate the future, and then that level of knowledge just vanished for millennium. Meanwhile, over in Utah, what looks like a totally normal forest is actually Pando, a single massive root system connecting 40,000 trees. At 80,000 years old, it has been quietly, steadily growing since before writing, before agriculture, literally before human civilization even began.
Hitting number 5, bending the literal fabric of space and time.
In 2016, physicists confirmed a totally new, mind-bending state of matter called the time crystal. Unlike a normal crystal that repeats its structure in space, a time crystal repeats in time. Left completely alone at its lowest possible energy state, it just moves in a steady, repeating rhythm forever, without using up a single drop of energy. It literally refuses to sit still. And hey, if you think time bending is just weird quantum theory, just look at your phone.
GPS satellites orbit in weaker gravity and move incredibly fast. To keep your map app accurate, engineers have to constantly correct the satellite's clocks, which actually run 38 microseconds faster every single day. If they ignored Einstein's time-bending math, your navigation would be off by 6 miles a day.
Number 4. Humanity just arbitrarily erasing and inventing time.
We tend to treat time like this absolute, unbreakable law of nature, but human history proves we really just make it up as we go. In 1752, Britain switched calendars and literally just deleted 11 days, which sparked actual riots from people who felt robbed of their lives. In 1994, the island nation of Kiribati legally skipped an entire Saturday just so they could win the global race to the year 2000. Fast forward to 2029, and melting polar ice is making the Earth spin slightly faster, meaning we'll likely face our first ever negative leap second, a glitch that our global computer networks might legitimately not survive. And what about your internal clock? Well, in 1962, a guy named Michel Siffre lived in a dark, isolated cave for 2 months with 0 clocks. Left entirely to its own devices, his brain quietly just invented a 25-hour day. Wild, right?
Number 3. The genuinely terrifying speed of time.
We all feel it, don't we? A single year when you're 7 feels completely endless, but a year when you're 40 just vanishes in a blink. Why is that? Well, the math of proportion suggests that when you're 5 years old, 1 year represents 20% of your entire life. At 50, it's just 2%. So it feels faster because it's a mathematically much smaller slice of your total experience. But the neurological congestion theory is much weirder. It suggests that as we age, our neural pathways get so congested that our brains literally physically record fewer distinct mental snapshots per unit of time. If that's true, time isn't just feeling faster, your actual memory of those passing years is literally thinner.
Which brings us to a truly unsettling thought from Albert Einstein. While engineers down in Texas are quietly building this massive mechanical clock designed to tick for exactly 10,000 years, Einstein's equation suggests that time doesn't actually flow at all. Because two observers moving at different speeds can mathematically disagree on which event happened first, a lot of physicists argue the past, present, and future might all just permanently exist together in one frozen four-dimensional block. Time isn't moving past us, we are simply the ones moving through it.
Down to number 2, the cracks in our subjective reality.
Up to 70% of us experience déjà vu. You know, that super eerie sensation of having lived this exact moment before. Is it just a real-time memory filing error? Well, what we do know is that for some people with epilepsy, déjà vu is actually an early warning sign of a seizure, which means this totally common feeling shares a neural neighborhood with a very serious medical event. But an even deeper, more mind-bending crack in reality is the inverted spectrum problem. Think about it. Look at a stop sign. You call it red. But we can never truly know if the private, subjective experience of red inside your head matches the color inside mine. Your red could actually be my green, and because we learned the exact same labels for those things, we would literally never, ever know. Science can measure the light waves perfectly, but it is completely blind to your subjective experience.
And finally, we've reached number 1. Let's just slow down for a second for the ultimate unsolved mystery. This one isn't about memory, and it's not about intelligence. This is what the philosopher David Chalmers famously calls the hard problem. See, science can scan your brain and watch exactly which neurons fire when you look at a beautiful sunset. They can even predict which ones are going to fire next. But they have absolutely zero idea why that electrical activity produces a subjective inner experience. Why is there a you inside there that feels something about it? A thermostat reacts to temperature changes. A brain reacts to light waves. Why does one of those produce an inner life, while the other is just a machine working in the dark? So, let's just end on this thought. Every other mystery we just covered in this explainer has a leading theory. But this one, it barely even has a starting point. The very consciousness you are using to process this information, the electrical activity currently firing behind your eyes to form an opinion about my voice, remains the single biggest unsolved puzzle in all of science. How is a lump of gray matter producing the very real feeling of being you right now? Hopefully, that leaves you with something pretty fascinating to chew on.